Okay. Let's carry on with this talks on Mettā Bhāvanā. So last week I talked about the instructions, the various instructions through the walking, through the sitting, through the daily activities or daily chores that you have to bring in all this metta. We also in the first talk we talk about the purpose, why we do this metta, and so on. A number of things. So while you are still in this Mettā Bhāvanā, we hopefully that this one you have to keep it going, because you really need to do it. You need to do it to arouse the metta. But since we passed through the first week, which is not too bad, at least as a number of you can able to grasp some understanding of metta, and you have developed some degree of metta, which is very good, wonderful. Then, if we still have 2 or 3 weeks and the 4th week, if you keep on put the hard work into it, put your time into it, I'm sure that it's going to have something at the end of the 1 month. If you don't put anything into it, then I'm sorry, there's nothing gained. Nothing much can be gained from there. Now, since I've for the past few interviews that I've gone through also, then I also noticed that there are a number of things that number of yogis tend to mix up between all these different loving kindness or compassion and so on. Especially the loving kindness and compassion. There's quite a lot of mix up here and there. So tonight I was thinking of giving the talk on to differentiate them out. To differentiate them out, and we're going to see sometimes where are our misunderstanding of this metta arises. Okay, so we're going to look into them, and then when with that, it's going to be helpful in our in our practice, because at least the mind can discern them. You don't go into too much onto it. At least it knows. So that will be good for our practice and good also for our future. All right. So tonight we're going to look into a part of what we call the 4 Brahmaviharas. The 4 Brahmavihara. Let me see, where's this one? Okay, let's share the screen. All right. Can you all see? Okay, the 4 Brahmavihara. Okay. Now here, usually in the Pali, we call it the 4 Brahmavihara. And in English, we translate as, sometimes they translate as divine abidings, or divine abodes, or sublime states of the mind, etc. So we have 4. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekkha. This one, I'm sure a lot of you know what is it, at least on the conceptual level, on the thinking level. Loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity. Now here the word Brahma here, we use the word Brahma is like the divine. And this is, we equate it like the Brahma gods or the Brahma devas, not the sensual devas. The sensual devas are, if you know the 31 realms of existence, above human beings, there are 6 realms of existence which we call the Deva realms. And after that sixth realm of the Deva realm, then they have all the Brahmas. So the Deva realm, they are not free from anger, and in the Brahma realm, they are free from anger. They are free from all this irritation and so on. But does not mean that they have eradicated the anger, not necessary. All these anger and mental defilements, when they exist in the Brahma world, the defilements are in the latent tendency, in the latent form. Latent form, that means that they don't arise while they are alive as a Brahma. But after a long time, then they pass away from Brahma, and then let's say they're reborn in the human realm or in the Deva realm, then this anger can arise again. But while they are there, they don't have. So the one like the Devas, these Devas are because they still have a lot of sensual desire, and their sensual desire are very strong. Their desire is that once you have this sensual desire, you also will have the opposite of the sensual desire, which is the anger and irritation and so on. In Asia, especially Asian country, I'm sure some of you have gone to the Pai Pai and then Angkong and all that, And then some of these Angkong, some of these Deva, they can be very cunning and also very fierce also. They can even kacau their devotees, disturb others and all that thing. So especially like in the Chinese culture, or even like Thai culture or Indonesian culture, also the same thing. They have all these type of things that you go into certain devas, or certain devas go into you, and then you talk in a certain manner, and then so on. They will try to manipulate you and so do all kinds of things. And if you don't fulfill their wishes, they're going to give a lot of problem to you. I was, in the past, there's this Mr. Lai, which was my Dhamma teacher, already passed away since March. And we are in the Buddhist society at that time. And he was telling me, he told us about the story that he, the ninth emperor got the Cao Hong Ya. You're supposed to like, if you're in trouble, and then you ask for a boon, and then when you receive all your success and so on, they expect something to be returned. If you forget to return them, then they will do something to you, make you sick or something like that. So after that, if you don't this one, then you're going to ask for forgiveness. If not, your disease or things will still be there for you. That's what he said now, which is interesting for us as a student at that time, But nevertheless, these devas are also mentioned in the suttas also, that they have wars and they're fighting among each other also. So they are not free from all this anger. So therefore, this Brahma divine, this Brahma realm, they are free from all this type of fightings and anger and irritation and so on. So therefore, vihara, and the thing is that the vihara is the abode or dwelling. So Brahmavihara, in the sense of the four excellent or sublime mental attitudes toward all being. That means how your mind is dwelling. How your mind is dwell in a kind of like, for example, like right now you are dwelling at home. So if the mind falls under the shelter of Mettā, then every time you go inside there, then that time your anger will not be there. Or you fall in the shelter of or abode or a dwelling of karuna, then your mind is filled with compassion. So this one, the four Brahmavihara here, it is a very sublime and an excellent mental state towards oneself and towards all beings. So it will be good that we have all these four. As I mentioned again, and many times when I talk about this Brahmavihara, I said that a person, must have all these four, rather than just being just loving kindness and loving kindness only. Because in life, it's not all the time loving kindness. In life, sometimes you have to act with compassion. Sometimes you have to radiate compassion. Sometimes you have to have altruistic joy. Sometimes you have equanimity. And actually the fourth one, the equanimity, is the most difficult for most people. Because the joy, compassion, altruistic joy, this one gave rise to joy, gave rise to happiness and joy. But the fourth one, it doesn't. The fourth one, it's equanimity. But a lot of times, even Buddhists, they don't understand what is the meaning of this upekkha. So we're going to look into it, see how this Brahmavihara, and we can able to adapt this Brahmavihara into our everyday life. And with this also understanding, we also try to develop it in our practice. Because in other times, in other retreats, that I do all this guided meditation on loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity. On my own also, I practice other times. Then I practice it for some time on loving kindness, on compassion. What you are doing right now. I mean, walking and sitting and things like that. So this Brahmavihara is an excellent state of mind. Most of us, we don't want this one. We want desire. We want anger. We want a fluctuation of the mind. Sometimes you want to get angry. Sometimes you want to be dull. Sometimes you want to be this and that. We want all kinds of things which is very connected to unwholesomeness. But this four, we don't really like it unless when you put an effort into developing. Now, so this one also we also known as apamanya, boundless or immeasurable states of mind. Now, what we're going to talk next? This one have a lot of things that we can talk about. Okay. Now, first thing, let us talk about this. Okay, let me put it a bit slightly wider. Okay. Now, this Mettā, to compare it to the different of it is that this Mettā, it promotes the welfare, the aspect of welfare or well-being or goodwill or benevolence of beings. For example, when we say, may you be free from harm and danger. May I be free from harm and danger. Then he wants to promote the well-being, the goodwill. That means it's a sincere wish. For example, sometimes, during in the guided Mettā, sometimes I use the word, not happy only, but truly happy. To me, the word truly, it is impactful because I want to wish you to be happy without any expectation, any desire, anything. Just for your welfare, for your well-being. When I do it for myself also, it's also exactly the same thing, that I wish myself to be truly happy, to be truly well, to be peaceful, and so on. So this one is promoting the welfare, well-being, and goodwill, benevolence of beings. But there is usually, most of us, if we unmindful or our wisdom is not sharp enough, then this part, a lot of times, it is tainted. And we're going to see why is it that it's tainted. And last week I said that when we do this loving kindness, it has to be pure. But as I said, it's easier said than done. Because a lot of times it's tainted with expectation, it is tainted by some craving, it's tainted by sensual desire. Then that one we have to look into it a little bit more. Yeah? So it's going to promote the aspect of welfare. Whereas karuna, compassion here is to promoting the aspect of removal of suffering of all beings. Promoting the aspect of removing suffering of all beings. When we say all beings, it also include yourself, because you are also part of the all beings. When we put it there. So here, the removal of suffering of all beings. Now, in this promoting the removal of aspect on the removal of all beings, then of course it can come in as an action and also as the mind states, and also definitely on the verbal also. Mettā also the same thing. It can promote on action also. It can promote on the mind also. So here is the aspect of you wish to remove the suffering that the beings that is undergoing through. That you want to wish or you want to act on it. Then this part also, when it is wants to remove all those things, but then again it can be tainted too. It can be tainted because that sometimes this suffering, if our mind is not strong enough, then it may goes into some sadness and some grief. It may go to some sadness or some grief. And then, or sometimes we think that we want to remove the suffering of all beings. I mean, I want to remove the suffering of all beings, It's not just a wish only, but you really want to do that. That also is actually in a way is tainted because there's an expectation is there. The expectation is there. It sounds nice. It sounds like that you want to remove the suffering of all beings. Like for example, sometimes there are some people wish to have the adhitthana. They want to remove the suffering of all beings before they get enlightened. In that aspect, that also is not, because there's expectation there, a certain degree of expectation. Then also sometimes it's tainted. Sometimes that people tainted is one of the thing is that the comparing of the action and the mind states, or the compassion of the mind or compassion in the action. Because a lot of time people think that compassion in action, it is greater than compassion of the mind. Because on the mind you just sit down and you may all beings be free from all this suffering. To a lot of people, they cannot accept this. They must have compassion in action. For example, nowadays, like for example, in Malaysia, there are some people, or many people actually, they lost their job. They don't have a livelihood, and then their savings run dry. Then there are people who are very kind enough. Then they provide them food, provide them groceries, provide them sometimes shelter, sometimes financial help for them to pull through. So they thought that this compassion in action, it's great, it's wonderful. It is wonderful. I'm not saying it's not wonderful. It is wonderful. But the thing is that the truth is that compassion in the mind if you develop it, it can go all the way to jhana. Whereas compassion in action, if you just do on compassion of action, you only have a lot of good deeds, a lot of great karma. When you die, there's a rebirth in the Deva world. Whereas in Karuna, in Karuna, in the sense of you develop until jhana, it goes up to the Brahma realm. It's much higher than the Deva realm. Yeah? So it's different. So in the aspect of compassion or loving kindness or altruistic joy, the mind one is much more greater, and it gives rise to the aspect of it gives rise to really rebirth in even a Brahma realm of existence. But for most of us, we don't see that. For most of us, we think that the compassion is action is greater than the compassion of the mind. Loving kindness in action is greater. They thought that it's greater than loving kindness of the mind. Yeah. So that is some misconception here and there. This is something that is connected. Although these are by themselves, they are very pure state of mind. But because of our misunderstanding, our taints, asavas, our desire, our craving, then these things can get tainted. Yeah? So it is good that for us to able to break away from that taints and to see into the more pure states of mind. And then with the pure states of mind, it will come with the pure states of action or pure states of verbal speech. Number 3, mudita. Mudita here is the altruistic joy. Here you are promoting the joy and gladness on seeing the success of all beings and all others. Here, this one, when you see looking into the gladness and so on, then here, this one, we truly, when people get their, so for example, some promotion, or they develop the meditation to a deeper stages and so on, we are happy for them. We are glad for them, rather than we are affected by our worldly ways, that we see other people have more success, then our eyes become very green, become jealous, we become very uneasy. Sometimes we also go into a lot of sadness. Oh, my colleague got all this promotion, I don't get it. Even you don't jealous, but you feel very sad inside there. Then that sadness, it is a kind of defilement. Yeah, it's a defilement. So here, we want to promote the gladness, happiness of others, which when you see the other people successful. But again, if that we are not careful, there's some expectation again. We come together with this mudita. What are the expectation? For example, when you see somebody hit the 4, no more echo, all the 4 number, or you get the lottery, then all the friends start coming already. All your friends and all your relatives you never seen before start coming to bask on your glory. And then of course, they're happy for you, but they want something back, that is tainted. This is tainted. This is not really mudita already. It's all tainted already. So afterwards, we're going to look into it a little bit more. So the equanimity here the equanimity, it promotes the neutrality. Neutrality means it comes with knowledge towards all beings. With knowledge. Neutrality towards all beings. Here, the knowledge here, it means like the knowledge of, for example, karma and vipaka, the cause and effect. Or acceptance of like old age, sickness, or death. Here, the mind doesn't jump into sadness. irritation, or it doesn't go into excessive desire or excessive wanting. It stays right in the middle. And this one is one of the most difficult to do. One of the most difficult to do. In a short while, we're going to look into it a little bit more. Now here the Buddha, not the Buddha, sorry. Here in the Visuddhimagga, in the Visuddhimagga, they give a simile of a mother with 4 children. It says that Mettā is like a baby or a toddler. A Mettā is like a baby or toddler, and then the mother wishing this baby or toddler to be safe and healthy. It does not want any harm. It does not want any danger to come to the baby or to the toddler. So too the mind, that when we radiate Mettā, it's like you are wishing others to be safe and happy, as if the whole mind is able to protect them. The whole Mettā can able to protect them. But of course, with this one, when it says this Mettā of simile of a mother with 4 children, you must look at it as the mother is not obsessive type of mother. Some mothers are very obsessive, but this one, when we look at it, is it's a simile. It's an example. So here, the Mettā here is that it's like the mother is wishing, wanting the child to be safe and healthy, to be free from all other whatever suffering that he wants to protect it safe. Whereas the karuna is like when the mother has a sick child. Now here, when a sick child here is that you want him to free from that illness, because that child, the illness is the main factor, is the big part of the child. So you want to free from that illness. So too, when we develop karuna, we look into the suffering. We look into the suffering of them. For example, even though you are happy, even though you are happy right now, but I can still able to develop a karuna for you, because I know that you also will still undergo the suffering of perhaps the suffering of samsara. You still go through the suffering of samsara. Although you are happy right now, but my focusing is on your suffering aspect that you are going through. Suffering of old age, perhaps, that you have to go through. So we want to wish you to be free from all those illness. But whether you are actually free from those illness or not, that is another matter. But if you want the person to be free from illness, then that is expectation, when there's a strong wanting. Whereas karuna is a wish. It's a true wish. It's a genuine wish. The compassion is a genuine wish that the person will be free from that illness. Sometimes, a lot of times, we wish the person that we go into a hospital or somebody we know that is sick, then we wish them well. We wish them to be, to be overcome their sickness as quickly as possible. That is a kind of compassion. We wish them to be free, but whether the person is free, will be free from that sickness as soon as possible, that is not your area already. That will be his karma or her karma already. Your job is to wish him or wish her to be free from that illness as soon as possible. That is what we call karuna. Now, in the mudita is like we see the person, like the child is in the youth stage. Now, in the youth stage, he is doing his studies, or perhaps he's doing his looking for job, or having building up his career, and so on. Then the mother wish him to be happy, to be successful. It's not jealous about his success and so on, but the mother itself wishing him to be happy and successful. So mudita is something like this. Then upeka. Upeka, the simile is given like an adult. The child has already become an adult and he's got his own business, has got his own family. Then the mother, when you look at it, the mother is not affected because the child knows how to take care of himself. The child has a career, and then therefore the mother is not affected. And he accept him or her, his way of life. He's doing whatever he needs to do for his family, for his this one. So the mother look on it with equanimity. Now, since we are talking about this one, let's go back to the interview a little bit. Because for the past interviews, a number of interviews that we have gone through, this is what some of the things that I've been observing, that and this Mettā thing, the female ones have easier for them to do the Mettā. The male ones is a bit harder for them. Why? Why the male participants have a bit more harder and female ones have more easier for them to able to radiate Mettā? Because one of the things that they have is that they have this protective motherly tendency. They have this protective motherly tendency, and it's easier for them, at least for the 1 week that I've seen the yogis, the participants and the meditators, they have easier for them to arouse this Mettā. Even they are not married also, Even if they don't have a child also, they're still able to radiate the Mettā, which is better. And a lot of them, they can able to expand to not only oneself, and slowly we can expand it to more beings and so on, because the nature. And some of the men, they can only start off with oneself, and then they start with the respected person already. Then when it comes to all beings, Bhante, I cannot feel them already, Bhante. Cannot feel already for them, Then only these two group only I can really feel. So why is that so? Because I think maybe because of the nature of a female, they have this protective nature in one part of their life or so on, And then therefore, with that, it's easy for them to arouse the Mettā. It's a more softer part of the mind, the yin part of the mind, Whereas the male, male is a bit difficult because this type of Mettā thing is not a very clear state of mind for many men, even for boys also. So, like for example, when we are boys, when we are for example, like me, I'm in all the boys' schools. In the boys' schools, have a lot of violence. Compared to a girls' school, opposite we have girls' school, they are not so problematic. But boys' schools, in terms of violence and so on, they are very hard in nature. They like, and some boys they like to bully, and others being bullied and so on. And some of all these are things are very very hard in nature because of their bodily strength, and they can do a lot of things. They can be very harsh at times. So this type of Mettā is not so easy to develop for them, because all over from young and they grow up, these states of mind is not part of their psyche, or not part of their mind. So it's not a bit difficult for the men, but nevertheless, it still can be developed. It's not that it cannot be developed. It will take more time only, Whereas the female ones, although they have this Mettā, the tendency to protect, but then with this protection, they have there's some degree of corruption is there. It's the mixture of obsession or possessiveness and so on. Then that is where my job is to make sure that they know and they remove that obsession or attachment or the desire and to stay with the Mettā. Whereas on the man side, they don't have enough Mettā. This is where my job is to arouse them to have more Mettā. So this is something that I've seen for at least for past 1 week. For the coming 2 weeks, the second week we're going to see. Just before we talk about it further, since first week we have gone through the first week Mettā Bhāvanā thing. Your honeymoon period is over, You say, oh, Bhante, I try. Second week is no more trying. Second week, you have to do it properly. By the time you come into the next interview, how come you're not doing anything? What have you been doing? The first week, okay lah, never mind. Try, carry on. The second week, my face changed already. No more nice monk already. So you better show some result already. Better do something already. I'm not trying to force you, but I want you to put a bit more effort into it. So don't slack. Just think that you have all this. So you make sure that you start doing something already. So this is then the simile. So, and here, when able to look at this, it will be good that, just now as I mentioned, we're going to look into a little bit more on this Mettā and Karuna also. Now here also in the Karaniya Mettā Sutta, just like the Buddha also used the simile of a mother, just as a mother would protect her only child with her own life, even so let him cultivate boundless thoughts of loving kindness towards all beings. That state of mind of protection and giving and to wishing the child to be free from all kinds of things, all kinds of harm, and that is the state of mind you have to arouse it and expand it on yourself, on the people that you venerate, on the whole country and the whole world and the whole universe and so on. So this is how we develop that state of mind. Because a lot of times, sometimes I heard that sometimes after an interview or two, one or a few yogis here and there, they still have a hard time. Bhante, still cannot feel this Mettā. Don't know what is it. And then they try to conceptualize the Mettā and so on. They try to understand it by thinking. But a lot of times this Mettā is true. You feel it. It's a state of mind. It's a state of mind that you feel it. Then when you feel it, then it's like that. Sometimes the words is very difficult. So the Buddha gave so many examples, like a mother would protect her only child. That is something the state of mind is like. Now, let us go into a little bit more. This is where it starts to affect our meditation. And this is where the far enemy and the near enemy this is something that we need to look into it a little bit more. Because when we meditation, it's usually the far enemy doesn't come in so much. It's the near enemy. This is the one that is affecting a lot of yogis. Let us see what is meant by this far enemy and near enemy. Now, far enemy means the complete opposite of Mettā, or complete opposite of Karuna, complete opposite of Mudita and Upekkha. Completely opposite here, the Mettā means it have loving kindness, but the far enemy is anger, aversion, or ill will. Sometimes they use the word ill will. Karuna, this is cruelty or violence, is opposite of it. And mudita is this jealousy and depressive state of mind or sadness and so on. Yeah? Upekkha is this irritation, fear, excessive desire. Other words, it's a mental fluctuation. There's a mental fluctuation. Now, this metta and ill will or anger has been mentioned a lot. Now, Buddhists, usually Buddhists, when we look into this metta, what I've seen is that not many Buddhists, they have this anger issue, strong anger issue. Yes, there'll be here and there, but as they become Buddhists, their anger begin to become less. But nevertheless, there are few here and there. So this anger for a lot of people out there, they cannot control their anger. Very, very difficult to control their anger. And their anger becomes a state where they really burn themselves inside out or outside in also. And then until they destroy their family, destroy their career and so on. And this is terrible. And the Buddha mentioned a lot of things about anger and ill will in the suttas. Even some monks during the Buddha's time also, they have a lot of anger because of their brought up or because of their karma from their past life. So they are completely the opposite. They are completely, it's just like black and white thing. Karuna here, it's the opposite of karuna, is the cruelty and the violence. And revenge, with the state of revenge and so on. Now in this world, as in this world when we have wars and all that, that is where a lot of cruelty and violence is taking place. At one time I was listening to a talk, many years ago, a talk by Joseph Goldstein, American insight meditation teacher in Massachusetts. And they was talking, that was just after the 9/11. And here, this year is already like 20 over years, Then some of the participants of some of the yogis were saying that when it says metta include all of them, how could I include the participants saying, how could I include the people who destroyed so many lives? They were saying, how could they include, how could they radiate the metta to these violent people? And of course, on the other hand, if you're on the other side of the receiving end also, if you're on the other side, whereas the American soldiers or the allied soldiers, they come into your country and they start to killing you or your family or your siblings and so on, they too also have a lot of anger and a lot of violence. And how could they even talk about metta in that type of surrounding? So painful to them. And when you have this violence and cruelty, the world is not going to. The world is going to be like that. Where in the time in our history there's no such thing as cruelty and violence? It's going to be there all the time. In the next future life that you're going to come in, it's going to be worse. The Buddha says it's so worse until that when the human life is only can live up to how many years? 10 years. That time there will become to a period of time. Anything is in your hand will become a weapon already. You will start killing each other. At that time, so there will be the whole human history in this samsara. There will always be cruelty and violence. You cannot run away. So definitely. So therefore, don't come back human world. Don't come back in samsara. Get out of it. As long as you are in samsara, there will still be violence and so on of all these type of things. Yeah? So don't think of it so much. And here the mudita also another thing. This is jealousy. This is sometimes it's depressive grief. Sometimes a lot of times also in the I've seen that when the jealousy cannot be controlled, you will do all kinds of things to jeopardize the name, the fame, and so on others. You create all kinds of misinformation and you dupe the public and so on in order to just to bring him down or bring her down or bring the whole state down also. Sometimes there are certain countries when other countries are getting better and then this country gets jealous and so on. So they give rise to misinformation and so on to other countries. These type of things has happened because jealousy is there. They don't want to see other people being successful and so on. This is still we call the far enemy. Or for some people, the far enemy of mudita is that when they see other people getting successful, they don't get it, then they get sad, they get depressive, they get down. And that being down, the mind is down and it's get that type of inner aversion as you don't get it and so on. That is what we call a defilement of the mind. So this is completely the opposite of mudita because they never learn, never know how to arouse this mudita. A lot of us in this world, we have all this anger and we live by this motto of anger. People do something to you, you want to shout back at them, you can hate them and so on. And it's all these things are being promoted by the society. Whereas when we, as a Buddhist, as you want to be a practicing Buddhist, we shift the mind from those things. Now, when it comes to upekkha, this upekkha is even more difficult. Because in the world, we want our lives to fluctuate. We want to have excessive joy. Then after that, when somebody died, then when we sad, we cry, and so on. Then after that, when this thing's over, we seek for joy again, we seek for happiness again. We want to fluctuate. And we want that life to be like that. To most of people, that is life. That is life. That is the colors of life. Sometimes you all read about it, all these things and so on. Whereas in the Buddhist sense, in the Buddha sense, this is you are swinging from one defilement to another defilement only. From one defilement that give rise to sadness and another defilements give rise to attachment, and then you keep on swinging. And we want that type of life. Whereas this upekkha, it comes in as more of a steadiness of the mind. The mind is balanced in the middle without this mental fluctuation. Now, for example, let's say, you see somebody died. In the hospital, you see somebody died there. What can you do right now? You see that person died. It's just like on Friday, there is a question on the sisters going into surgery. And we hope again that your sister has gone through a successful surgery. And again here, when this type of things is happening, immediately our mind goes into grief and sadness. It fluctuates. Being a Buddhist and being a practicing Buddhist, this is where we bring our mind back to the center. In the sense that we understand it with knowledge that this is part of life. There will be birth, there will be death, in your own reflection. Or sometimes you reflect that with the karma ripening, as the karma ripens, then therefore death may comes in. The vipaka arises, that certain vipaka arises, it gives rise, death takes place. Now with that reflection, the mind stays in the middle. The mind doesn't go into excessive sadness, or another situation, it doesn't go into excessive joy. In a sense that when you see some places which is very beautiful and everything, and then your desire keep on wanting. Yeah. Sometimes you see in the internet, YouTube, or certain places to be beautiful, then the whole mind is so much desire that when everything is open, this is the first place I want to go. There's already keep in the mind already, beta hunt already, and they explode already. That strong desire. And to us, we thought that, for most people, they thought that, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? This is a human desire, after all. People can tell you, but in the Buddhist sense, in the practicing sense, this is defilement. This is not upekkha. This is not upekkha. So upekkha, sometimes there's fear. For example, the fear of ghosts and spirits and so on. This type of fear can overwhelm a person. Even a lot of views, sometimes there's no spirits, things around. Your mind is creating all kinds of things. Even sometimes when you go into a meditation center, even give you a room also. Bhante, I dare not stay in the room, Bhante. You stay in the hall also. Bhante, I dare not stay in the hall. Where you want to stay? Why for you come? So much fear. Because why? The mind is all in their lives. There's no stability at all. They don't see that this fear is an excessive thing and that it fluctuates the mind there. So here, the fear is that when you have some knowledge about mindfulness, for example, just learn to accept them. If they are there, learn to accept them. They are to be there. Then when the mindfulness is there, then the mind comes down into the center. Neither it is happy for the beings, and also it's neither not happy about the beings being there. It is right at the center with understanding. Well, sometimes that in your office, that sometimes your colleague or whatever, they can be quite nasty. They can be quite nasty. But if you don't control yourself, your words can come out with terrible words, or your mind can come up with all kinds of wrong thinking. You wish ill will to him and so on and so forth. That because that the mind is not trained. And therefore, this time the upekkha is very important. Upekkha doesn't mean that you don't react. Doesn't mean that you become like a floor mat that people step on you all the time, and then you just accept accept. So that is not the way. Upekkha means that if you want to react, if you want to respond, can you able to do it without anger, without irritation, but with clear understanding? Could you able to do that? That is difficult to do. That's why it is people don't want to go through all these things. But as a practitioner, this is what we are supposed to do. That even that sometimes that people criticize you about your meditation, people criticize you about your attitude and so on, then you know that they are just being spiteful. Can your mind able to remain at the center with upekkha, without all this mental fluctuation? Just like, for example, in the Vinaya or in the suttas also, it is mentioned that there will be people will hurl insult onto the monks, will give terrible words to the monks. Every now and then when we walk around, and some people will call us bota, but we can able to accept it, no problem. It is, we are actually bald-headed, I have no problem with that, but they do it out of spite. But if my mind is not trained to be equanimous, to be mindful, to be steady, then I'm going to get angry over them. What do you mean you call me in this way? Yeah. Talking about this botak thing. Reverend Dasana, when he was a monk, when he was a monk, and now of course he passed away, when he was a monk, he loves to call me botak, but he is also botak also. He said, why you call me the same thing, because it just feel good. I mean, it's just part of, it's part of the whole thing, part of being friendship, but this is something. But anyway, the thing is that, as I said, that even in the outside, if you are not careful, if your mind cannot able to stay in the middle, then it's very easy for the mind to go into fear, to go into irritation, to go into excessive joy, excessive desire. You see one thing, you want to eat that, you want to this, and you want to do that, and so on. So this upekkha is a very difficult thing to practice. Okay? Now, let's go to the near enemy a little bit. Now, this near enemy, it's even more difficult to do. This near enemy is called near enemy means very similar to the sublime states, but it is a mental defilement. Usually I use the word evil twin, the evil twin. Because it's nice, it sounds nice. It looks like it, but it's in the evil form. So the near enemy is something like that. It mimics what is just like Mettā or just like Karuna. For example, that this Mettā, that you share your loving kindness. You thought that you share your loving kindness to your loved ones. For example, a boy-girl having a relationship. A boy-girl having a relationship. And then this boy is doing a lot of things, protect the woman, to protect the girl, and so on. Protect her from harm and all that thing. Do you think that this is Mettā? Because that comes with expectation. It comes with desire. It comes with sensual desire. It looks like it's protecting. It looks like you are protecting from her. But if the boy has no relationship with the girl, then the protection is all over. Just for example, if the relationship has broken, do you still shower her with all this type of protection and free from harm and also no more. So definitely there is an ulterior motive there. There's ulterior motive. So here the sensual desire here is something like that. There's an expectation. So this expectation, for example, like when you do this Mettā thing, some of us beg, may you be free from harm and danger. And then they become obsessive with another person, that they want the person, they want already, not wish, they want the person to be free from harm and danger already. How come I wish you to be free from harm and danger? Like for example, you go walk in the forest, you go walk in the forest, walk. Then hey, this forest got beings one. May all of you be well and happy, May all of you be well and happy. But don't come and disturb me, Just to stay where you are, but don't come and disturb me. This is expectation. Expectation has come in. Expectation, because Mettā is just wishing them to be well and happy, to be free from harm and danger. Whether they will harm you or not is up to them, You get what I mean? Because if you have ulterior motive, you do this Mettā, and you want all the rest of the beings don't come and harm you, that means you have certain degree of expectation. So that one, a lot of us have to be careful with when we do this Mettā, because the near enemy is just beside you only. If you just don't understand how the ulterior motive work, this is where it is going to come in. Now, this one is quite a subtle state of mind. Even the defilement is also quite a subtle state of mind. This is where we learn from vipassana meditation, especially in the sampajanya, the clear comprehension. In the clear comprehension, every of my retreats, there's mentioning about intention and suitability. And that is where we begin to understand how the intention works, how our mental intention works, and how it's being, whether it is suitable or not suitable, whether it's appropriate or not appropriate, that the wisdom able to distinguish them out. And then you do this again and again, repeat on it again and again, you begin to see the deeper aspect of the desire and craving. If not, those things is very difficult to see. This is where when we train the mind, into it, when we bring those things into Mettā, Karuna and so on, then the mind can able to pinpoint, hey, expectation is already there because of the discerning part of the mind. So the vipassana is very helpful in the sense of able to see all these things. We don't realize that this expectation is strong in us. We always wish them to be free from harm and danger, but we want something back from them. We don't want them to harm us. We don't want them to do this to us. We don't want them to do that to us. That is what we want, in a certain sense. Then karuna also the same thing. Karuna, this compassion also the same thing. And a lot of times we put some expectation into it. For example, nowadays people give food. Let's say you give food and so on. You go outside, the person receive food and so on. You give and you're happily giving it. But then after that, he walks a few steps. He take that food that you given, a packet of food, he throw it in the dustbin. Then you saw it. How do you feel? Why you feel angry? Because there's expectation there. If it's not yours, you don't feel angry. You only wish the person, you only wish to give only. What he does with the food, what he did with all the food, it is not your concern. But because you see the person, you give, and we wish them we want him to eat, but he didn't eat. He throw it away kind of like in front of you in that sense. But you get angry. Therefore, expectation is there. The expectation is there. And then sometimes, a lot of time, most of the time, when we have this sadness with this with this karuna thing, we thought that those are compassion. That when you see somebody get sick, then your heart also becomes sad. When you're sad, you do some degree, you want to help and all that, but the sadness is still holding on inside there. That one, it can be a big problem. This one can be a big problem because the near enemy is already incorporated into the karuna already, compared to this one. So the thing is that right now, you cannot be free from sadness. You cannot be free from this expectation. You are not arahant. You are not noble ones. We know that. But the thing is that if you can able to recognize those things, you can able to reduce them. And we can able to reduce them. It become very helpful to your life because you don't go into the sadness for a long period of time. Your sadness becomes shorter, much more shorter. Then you can able to come back to your natural self. So this one is important. Now this worldly joy also the same thing. Worldly joy also that we happy for others, but we want something back. I praise you because of your success. I praise you for your success. But by praising, I wish that I can get into your spotlight, your radar is on me also, sometimes in the office, you praise somebody and all that. You praise your boss and you hoping that your boss can give you some promotion or some raising your salary. just people be that because that is called a worldly joy and expectation. It's not a sincere. It's not sincere. It's kind of like there's ulterior motive behind it. So this is what we meant here. Upeka again here, the near enemy is that you don't care, you don't bother attitude. That you see a person who is hungry. And you see a person, you just close your eyes, you bought tatao. You don't care, don't bother. Now, this is indifference. You see your children, you come back, you see your children, it's just having some problem or hungry and so on, and then you just don't care. You just do whatever you want. You don't bother about them. That is called indifference. This indifference is very unwholesome because they are unwholesome. They are unwholesome because what you see, you don't want to act upon it. So this is the near enemy. Perhaps maybe on the next talk, we're going to talk a little bit more on all these type of things, because this one, they are small and they are difficult to see. So here something like that on this the difference on these four Brahmaviharas. So the next talk will be on Wednesday. Will be on Wednesday. Now, some of you will be on interviews tomorrow. Some of you will be on. So check your interview list. Okay. All right. So that's it for tonight.